Hello and welcome to Infinity Boss Skills. These tutorials are made for new and old Infinity Raiders as a quick guide to the tactics we use to down bosses. These tactics are not the only ones to be used on these bosses, but we seem to find that they work best for us. Hope you find them useful and good guides to killing bosses in Lich King. Okay, let's talk about Malygos and his three stages. Stage 1 has a couple of parts to it. Malygos is tanked on the ground and DPS by the raid. Malygos also causes something called a vortex. Vortex is where Malygos takes to the air, making the whole raid go into a whirlwind effect, taking damage as they're spun round and round and then eventually re-drop back down to the ground. Starting the ground phase once again. Let's talk about the pull on this phase. You'll notice that Malygos is up in the air and he goes off towards the sky, and I place myself, the main raid, on the opposite side of the orb. The orb is just what starts the fight. Once the fight is started, the orb disappears. The raid starts at the back of the room and Malygos is incoming towards us. In between there is our main tank. On the right hand side, walks forward, picks up Malygos and turns him. The main raid will then move to the middle of the room and take position for DPS. Something to really note about this stage of the fight and every stage where Malygos lands, it has a deep breath effect which should only really hit the tank. If it hits the main raid, it pretty much is a one-shot wipe. Let's look at that Malygos pull one more time. Malygos is in the air and I'm positioning the raid on the opposite side of the orb. I'll set the orb up, you'll see a misdirect go on my main tank. She'll walk forward and throw her Avenger Shield. We use tricks as well, misdirects all the way through this first stage to get as much threat as we possibly can. Okay, there's the Malygos pull. Let's talk about power sparks. Power sparks are very important in this stage. First thing you need to know is they must never ever reach Malygos. If they do, they'll buff him, increasing his DPS one shot in your tanks. The idea is, the power spark spawns in the air and travels towards Malygos in a direct line, north, south, east or west. You'll want to control these power sparks, killing them on top of the raid, which then gives us a buff that kills Malygos quicker. There's our first spark. You'll notice it was shackled by a Death Knight and slowed, but then stunned. That's bad because it's outside the group and not buffing us. At this point I'll move the group and put us into the buff area. There's our second spark. It's come in, it's been killed quite nicely. We now have two buffs which will DPS in the boss with, which increases the DPS and the time it takes to get through phase 1. Okay, phase 1's all about controlling those power sparks, getting the buffs on the raids to increase our DPS to get through it quicker. Here's the really important part about phase 1, vortexes, and this is the tricky part. Vortex is when you go up into the air, the main raid will be dropped back into the middle of the room, including your tank, the entire raid and Malygos. You'll have to split the raid away from Malygos and the main tank, pretty much sending them in opposite directions. This is how we coordinate and do it in Infinity. You'll notice in the air a rift appears. This is where the power spark forms and then actually travels towards Malygos. I'll actually look for these rifts before the vortex spawns and I'll shout out on VT where it is. This is where the raid will head towards as we all land after a vortex, sending the tank in exactly the opposite direction. This means that we can come back to the middle, ready for the actual power spark to be killed on top of us again. So that's the Malygos pull, the sparks and the vortex, and the way we split our main tank and the raid to make sure we don't get the arcane breath. Alright, this is phase 2. You'll notice that between the transitions between phase 1 and phase 2, Malygos goes into the air and just sits there floating. The main raid wants to put as much DPS on him at this point as you can. Pop your trinkets. For me, we don't use heroism here. We use it on the next section where we kill the ants. Welcome to phase 2. I hope you got through phase 1 without significant deaths and some good DPS. That will increase as your time goes on and you get used to the fight and controlling of the power sparks. Welcome to stage 2. Stage 2's got 5 different elements. There's adds that come in and will be need to tank and DPS on the floor by melee. There's adds in the air on platforms which will need to be DPS by the casters, which travel in a clockwise motion. You can see one now being DPS'd. There's the shield we're standing in, which reduces the damage we take through this stage, which means we will move from shield area to try and protect the raid as much as possible. The boss himself does a deep breath effect. The only way to survive this is by standing in one of these shields. You'll notice now in the video this shield gets very small and we're just about to take a deep breath. The other part of this is every mob we kill drops one of these platforms and allowing us to jump onto these platforms and float up into the air. Someone's just done that on the right hand side. I'm not sure if you see, but I'll show you a better view of that later. That's the 5 elements to stage 2. This is how we in Infinity do it. I use 2 main tanks. The main tank picks up the first mob, marks it with a yellow star. That's the first mob to kill by melee. All the casters will kill the mobs that float in the air on platforms. I'm on the MT list and they'll just assist me. I pick on the furthest left mob I can, knowing that it will travel all the way around me to the right hand side and get as much DPS as we can. Looking in the video now, you'll notice that we're DPSing one in the air. It's just died and it's dropped a platform. One of my casters go out, jumps on that platform and takes off into the air. There you'll see him on the right hand side, and there he goes. Through this section we pretty much rinse and repeat this system, going from shield area to shield area, timing the deep breath to make sure we're inside the shields, and DPSing these mobs in the air and the ones on the floor till they're all dead and we hit stage 3. You'll notice now we've just killed the last mob and this is the start of stage 3. The first thing I do is I run to the edge and everybody groups up on me in a tight hug. Welcome to stage 3. Congratulations on getting here. At this point you'll notice the floor will disappear, the main raid will all drop down and will end up on dragons. At this point your UI will disappear and you'll bring up a new pet bar with 6 different types of abilities. I'll only be going through 4 of these abilities in this stage, as I feel this is all you need to kill Malygos through stage 3. Flame Spike, Engulfing Flames, Flame Shield and Life Burst. Everybody will target Malygos and start stacking Flame Spike upon him. It's a basic DPS move. You'll get combat points like same as you do as a rogue. When you hit 5 combat points you'll do one of 2 things. Engulfing Flames if you're a DPS, putting a DPS on the boss and a debuff and causing massive damage. If you're a healer then you'll be pressing Life Burst on rotation with your other healers to keep the raid alive. We use 22 DPS and only 3 healers through this section. The last and most important one is called Flame Shield. Malygos targets 3 random people. If you don't proc your Flame Shield when he targets you, he'll kill you pretty much in one shot, which will lose your DPS and your debuff on boss, resulting in not a kill on the boss. That's the basic 4 abilities we use for this fight to get through stage 3. At this point let's talk about the movement of the raid. You'll notice that I move the raid to the right every so often. The reason for this is the boss throws out a static field which does damage for a 30-yard radius, so I have to keep moving to the right to keep the raid alive. While we're doing this we keep DPSing with the Flame Spike, engulfing our flames to put the debuff on, Flame Shield if he random targets you, and Life Burst from the healers. This keeps the raid up and running and DPS keeps flowing. That's the Malygos fight through all the different phases. You'll notice that through this tutorial different bits of information pop up on the screen in written form. Please take time to pause and read these, as there's some tips and tricks that will make this fight so much easier for you. Thank you for watching this tutorial and wish you all the best with a Malygos kill.